Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, and welcome to the Sri Vidya Temple's chanting class. We're focusing on Sri Devi Mahatmyam, and we'll be starting with chapter 4. So I'll start the class with Ganapati prayer. Om Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Viknopashantaye. So in chapter 4, so basically up until this point, all of the verses have been in Anushtup Chandas, which is very typical, very common. We're all used to chanting that for most of the shlokas that we chant, and the melody is the same. But now in chapter 4, it's starting with a different chandas, which is a bit longer, and so the melody is different. And so that's one of the tricky parts, is to get the melody. So that's part of the practicing that you'll do. And so because that is a little tricky, I'm going to have Sriji repeating the lines so that it's very easy for everyone to hear the melody for this chandas clearly. So this is actually considered like a stuti within Devi Mahatmyam. So in Devi Mahatmyam, there are certain places where the gods will sort of sing a song of praise to the goddess, Durga Devi, because she's just defeated some demons, or she saved everybody, something like that. So I believe there's about 4 different stutis. So these tend to be very beautiful and very pleasant to chant, and kind of a nice break in the midst of all the heavy lifting. So like one of them you might be familiar with is in the 5th chapter, all those things where it's like Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matrurupena Samstita. That's one of the stutis. Also in 11th chapter, where it's all the things like Narayani Namostute. That's the Narayani stuti. So that's another one. And then this is also one which I guess people just call as Shakradaya stuti, because it begins with Shakradayaha. So these are also a lot of really nice shlokas, and in this section comes one of the verses that we're very familiar with, Durge smruta harasi bhiti masesha janto swasthai smruta matimati vashubham dadasi. So that's part of the Sampuja Sri Suktam that we chant in the temple, and also part of Durga Sapta Shloki. So that's one of the, so it's very, these are like, just very beautiful prayers to Devi, and, telling her names and how much she helps us and saves us, and when we surrender to her. So very beautiful verses in this section. And so one of the tricky things with the melody is that it doesn't start on the Shruti. So you know how we have our Shruti note, and normally you start the verse at the same note as Shruti. But in this melody, you're actually starting at one note below, which is hard to get. But it's just a matter of practice and focusing on the Shruti, and then you'll be able to get it. So when I start, I'm going to just start the first one with Om, even though there's no Om there, so that you can hear the Om is at Shruti, and then the verse comes in one note below Shruti. So just so you can hear that. And Sriji, if you can repeat the lines. Om Shakradaya Suragana.
Om Sharkadaya Suragana. Sharkadaya Suragana.
Nihateti virye.
Nihateti virye. Nihateti virye.
Shakradaya Suragana Nihateti virye.
Shakradaya suragana nihateti virye shakradaya suragana nihateti virye.
So now I'll repeat this 4 times. Shakradaya suragana nihateti virye. Shakradaya suragana nihateti virye. Shakradaya suragana nihateti virye. Shakradaya suragana nihateti virye. So that was just half of a line. So for the second half of the line, it's a similar melody, but slightly different. So we'll start the second half now. Tasmin duratmani
Tasminduratmani Tasminduratmani
surari bale cha divya.
Surari bale cha devya Surari bale cha devya
Tasmin duratmani surari bale cha divya.
Tasminduratmani surari bal. Sorry, I messed it up. How does surari bale go again?
Surari bale cha divya.
Tasminduratmani surari bale cha devya Tasminduratmani surari bale cha devya.
So I think there was just a question it came in the Telegram group from Mahesh Aya about whether there's a Telugu PDF. So I'm not sure if you have seen the folder that we have. Okay, looks like Shirisha Amma has just posted a link to that, to the folder where we have the docs. So there should be a Telugu version in there. We usually do docs in English transliteration, Devanagari, Telugu, and also Tamil. So those are the 4 most common scripts that people use. So that's what we've produced so far. All right, so now I'm going to repeat that half line 4 times. Tasmin duratmani surari bale cha devya. Tasmin duratmani surari bale cha devya. Tasmin duratmani surari bale cha devya. Sorry. Tasmin duratmani surari bale cha devya. All right, so now I'm going to try the whole line. And Sriji, you can repeat the whole line after me. Shakradaya suragana nihateti virye tasmin duratmani surari bale cha devya.
Shakradaya suragana nihateti virye tasminduratmani surari bale cha devya Shakradaya suragana nihateti virye tasminduratmani surari bale cha devya.
Okay, so hopefully that's clear to everyone. Now let's go on to the next half line. Tam toshto pranati namra
तां तुष्टुवः प्रणतिनम्र तां तुष्टुवः प्रणतिनम्र
शिरोधरां सा
शिरोधरां सा शिरोधरां सा
तां तुष्टुवः प्रणतिनम्रशिरोधरां सा
तां तुष्टुवः प्रणतिनम्रशिरोधरां सा तां तुष्टुवः प्रणतिनम्रशिरोधरां सा
वाग्भिः प्रहर्षपुल
वाग्भिस्प्रहर्षपुलक वाग्भिस्प्रहर्षपुल.
So one question in your text, like is it vagbhihi?
Yeah,
Okay, okay, good.
vagbhis, I guess. Yeah.
Kotkamacharudeha
कोद्गमचारुदेहाः कोद्गमचारुदेहाः
Vagbhif praharshapulakotkamacharudehah
वाग्भिः प्रहर्षपुलकोद्गमचारुदेहाः वाग्भिः प्रहर्षपुलकोद्गमचारुदेहाः.
Now I'll try the whole line. Tam dushtovah pranatinamrashirodharam savagbhif praharshapulakot kamacharudehah
तां तुष्टुवः प्रणतिनम्रशिरोधरां सा वाग्भिः प्रहर्षपुलकोद्गमचारुदेहाः तां तुष्टुवः प्रणतिनम्रशिरोधरां सा वाग्भिः प्रहर्षपुलकोद्गमचारुदेहाः.
So right now, because we're chanting so slowly, it's too difficult to chant the whole line in one breath. Eventually, when you get up to speed, it is ideal to chant a line in one breath. It takes some practice. Personally, I usually feel a bit dizzy when I do that, chanting everything, but that's one of the things to practice when you're practicing on your own is just physically taking a deep enough breath to chant the whole line in one breath. It's because there's a bit of sort of not breathing practice, but just strengthening of the breathing process to be able to chant this. It's still challenging for me, but it's something that we can all work on. So I'm going to repeat that one line 4 times by myself. Tam tushtovah pranatinamrashirodharam savagbhif praharshapulakot kamacharudehah tam tushtovah pranatinamrashirodharam savagbhif praharshapulakot kamacharudehah Tam tushtovah pranatinamrashirodharam savagbhif praharshapulakot kamacharudehah Tam tushtovah pranatinamrashirodharam savagbhif praharshapulakot kamacharudehah. And also, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to holding and holding in the lines. And one big advantage of that is that it gives enough of a pause for your brain to catch up with your mouth. And it makes it a lot easier to get through these lines if you are focused on the chant, the holding, and making sure that you're doing that. Okay, so next line. Devyaya tatamidam
Devyaya tatamidam. Devyaya tatamidam.
jagadatma shaktya
Jagadatma Shaktya. Jagadatma Shaktya.
Devyaya tatamidam jagadatma shaktya
Devyaya tatamidam jagadatma shaktya. Devyaya tatamidam jagadatma shaktya.
nishesha devagana
Nishesha devagana. Nishesha devagana.
shakti samoha murtya
Shakti Samuha Murtya. Shakti Samuha Murtya.
nishesha devagana shakti samoha murtya
Nishesha Deva Gana Shakti Samuha Murtya. Nishesha Deva Gana Shakti Samuha Murtya.
Now the whole line. Devyaya tatamidam jagadatma shaktya nishesha devagana shakti samoha murtya
Devyaya tatamidam jagadatma shaktya nishesha deva gana shakti samuha murtya. Devyaya tatamidam jagadatma shaktya nishesha deva gana shakti samuha murtya.
Now I'll chant it 4 times. Devyaya tatamidam jagadatma shaktya nishesha devagana shakti samoha murtya Devyaya tatamidam jagadatma shaktya nishesha devagana shakti samoha murtya Devyaya tatamidam jagadatma shaktya nishesha devagana shakti samoha murtya Devyaya tatamidam jagadatma shaktya nishesha deva karna shakti samoha murtya. Next line. Tamambikamakhila
Tamambikamakhila. Tamambikamakhila.
Deva Maharshi Pujyam
Deva Maharshi Pujyam. Deva Maharshi Pujyam.
Tamambikamakhila Deva Maharshi Pujyam
Tamambikamakhila Deva Maharshi Pujyam. तामम्बिकामखिलदेवमहर्षिपूज्याम् भक्त्यानतास्म भक्त्यानतास्म
विदधातु शुभानि सानः
विदधातु शुभानि सानः विदधातु शुभानि सानः
भक्त्यानतास्म विदधातु शुभानि सानः
भक्त्यानतास्म विदधातु शुभानि सानः भक्त्यानतास्म विदधातु शुभानि सानः
Now the whole line. तामम्बिकामखिलदेवमहर्षिपूज्यां भक्त्यानतास्म विदधातु शुभानि सानः
तामम्बिकामखिलदेवमहर्षिपूज्यां भक्त्यानतास्म विदधातु शुभानि सानः तामम्बिकामखिलदेवमहर्षिपूज्यां भक्त्यानतास्म विदधातु शुभानि सानः
Now I'll do the line 4 times. तामम्बिकामखिलदेवमहर्षिपूज्यां भक्त्यानतास्म विदधातु शुभानि सानः तामम्बिकामखिलदेवमहर्षिपूज्यां भक्त्यानतास्म विदधातु शुभानि सानः तामम्बिकामखिलदेवमहर्षिपूज्यां भक्त्यानतास्म विदधातु शुभानि सानः तामम्बिकामखिलदेवमहर्षिपूज्यां भक्त्यानतास्म विदधातु शुभानि सानः. Okay, so next line. यस्याः प्रभावमतुलम्
यस्याः प्रभावमतुलम् यस्याः प्रभावमतुलम्
भगवाननन्तो
भगवाननन्तो भगवाननन्तो
यस्याः प्रभावमतुलं भगवाननन्तो
यस्याः प्रभावमतुलं भगवाननन्तो यस्याः प्रभावमतुलं भगवाननन्तो
ब्रह्माहरश्च नहि
ब्रह्माहरश्च नहि ब्रह्माहरश्च नहि
वक्तुमलम्बलं च
वक्तुमलं बलं च वक्तुमलं बलं च
ब्रह्माहरश्च नहि वक्तुमलम्बलं च
ब्रह्माहरश्च नहि वक्तुमलं बलं च ब्रह्माहरश्च न हि वक्तुमलं बलं च.
So when we join these together, you'll notice that there's holding in the middle of the line, which is a little challenging to see because of the way the lines are separated, half line by half line. But remember, it's a line all the way up to the danda, that vertical line. So when we have Ananto Brahma, so there's never any pause in the middle of these half lines. And there should be holding because the bra is a conjunct and it's coming after Ananto, so it's Ananto Brahma, okay? यस्याः प्रभावमतुलं भगवानन्तो ब्रह्मा हरश्च न हि वक्तुमलं बलं च.
यस्याः प्रभावमतुलं भगवाननन्तो ब्रह्मा हरश्च न हि वक्तुमलं बलं च. यस्याः प्रभावमतुलं भगवाननन्तो ब्रह्मा हरश्च न हि वक्तुमलं बलं च.
Now I'll chant that 4 times. यस्याः प्रभावमतुलं भगवाननन्तो ब्रह्मा हरश्च न हि वक्तुमलं बलं च. यस्याः प्रभावमतुलं भगवाननन्तो ब्रह्मा हरश्च न हि वक्तुमलं बलं च. यस्याः प्रभावमतुलं भगवाननन्तो ब्रह्मा हरश्च न हि वक्तुमलं बलं च. यस्याः प्रभावमतुलं भगवाननन्तो ब्रह्मा हरश्च न हि वक्तुमलं बलं च. Next line. सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत्
सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत् सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत्
परिपालनाय
परिपालनाय परिपालनाय
सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत् परिपालनाय
सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत्परिपालनाय सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत्परिपालनाय
नाशाय च शुभभयस्
नाशाय चाशुभभय नाशाय चाशुभभय
भयस्य मतिं करोतु
भयस्य मतिं करोतु भयस्य मतिं करोतु
नाशाय च शुभभयस्य मतिं करोतु
नाशाय चाशुभभयस्य मतिं करोतु नाशाय चाशुभभयस्य मतिं करोतु.
Now the whole line. सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत्परिपालनाय नाशाय च शुभभयस्य मतिं करोतु
सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत्परिपालनाय नाशाय चाशुभभयस्य मतिं करोतु सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत्परिपालनाय परिपालनाय नाशाय च शुभभयस्य मतिं करोतु.
So in this line, notice how there's that quick transition from the first half to the second half. There's no pause in there, so it very, very quickly goes right to the next part. So that's important, especially when chanting quickly during like a group parayanam or event. That will go pretty fast. So it's good to practice. So now I'll do that line 4 times. Sa chandika jagat परिपालनाय नाशाय च शुभभयस्य मतिं करोतु सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत्परिपालनाय नाशाय च शुभभयस्य मतिं करोतु सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत्परिपालनाय नाशाय च शुभभयस्य मतिं करोतु सा चण्डिकाखिलजगत्परिपालनाय नाशाय च शुभभयस्य मतिं करोतु. Okay, so I'll go on to the next line. Ya Shri Swayam Sukrutinam
या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां.
And in this part, notice the holding on Yash and also Shri Swayam. So Yash Shri Swayam. Okay. Bhavaneshwalakshmi.
भवनेष्वलक्ष्मी भवनेष्वलक्ष्मी.
या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेष्वलक्ष्मी
या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेष्वलक्ष्मी. या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेष्वलक्ष्मी.
पापात्मनां कृतधियां
पापात्मनां कृतधियां पापात्मनां कृतधियां
हृदयेषु बुद्धिः
हृदयेषु बुद्धिः हृदयेषु बुद्धिः.
पापात्मनां कृतधियां हृदयेषु बुद्धिः
पापात्मनां कृतिधियां sorry पापात्मनां कृतधियां हृदयेषु बुद्धिः पापात्मनां कृतधियां हृदयेषु बुद्धिः.
So now notice how the end of Lakshmi comes before pa in papatmanam. So that means that that's going to be Lakshmi papatmanam. I'm even thinking in the final version of this to maybe put a sound in parentheses because when you're chanting quickly, if you don't have it memorized, which most people don't, it's really challenging to know what that visarga should be pronounced as if you haven't looked at the next part yet. So I might put like a little, sound in parentheses to help that. I'm thinking about that. All right, so the whole line would be like this. या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेष्वलक्ष्मीः पापात्मनां कृतधियां हृदयेषु बुद्धिः
या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेष्वलक्ष्मी पापात्मनां कृतधियां हृदयेषु बुद्धिः या श्रीस्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेष्वलक्ष्मीः पापात्मनां कृतधियां हृदयेषु बुद्धिः.
So now I'll do it 4 times. या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेष्वलक्ष्मीः पापात्मनां कृतधियां हृदयेषु बुद्धिः या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेष्वलक्ष्मीः पापात्मनां कृतधियां हृदयेषु बुद्धिः या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेष्वलक्ष्मीः पापात्मनां कृतधियां हृदयेषु बुद्धिः या श्री स्वयं सुकृतिनां भवनेष्वलक्ष्मीः पापात्मनां कृतधियां हृदयेषु बुद्धिः. Next line. श्रद्धा सतां कुलजन
श्रद्धा सतां कुलजन श्रद्धा सतां कुलजन
प्रभवस्य लज्जा
प्रभवस्य लज्जा प्रभवस्य लज्जा
श्रद्धा सतां कुलजन प्रभवस्य लज्जा
श्रद्धा सतां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जा श्रद्धा सतां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जा
तां त्वां नता स्म
तां त्वां नता स्म तां त्वां नता स्म
परिपालय देवि विश्वम्
परिपालय देवि विश्वम् परिपालय देवि विश्वम्
तां त्वां नता स्म परिपालय देवि विश्वम्
तान्तान्नता स्म परिपालय देवि विश्वम् तान्त्वान्नता स्म परिपालय देवि विश्वम्.
Now the whole line. श्रद्धा सतां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जातां त्वां नता स्म परिपालय देवि विश्वम्
श्रद्धा सतां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जातान्तान्नता स्म परिपालय देवि विश्वम्. श्रद्धा सतां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जातान्तान्नता स्म परिपालय देवि विश्वम्.
Now I'll chant it 4 times. श्रद्धा सतां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जातां त्वां नता स्म परिपालय देवि विश्वम् श्रद्धा सतां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जातां त्वां नता स्म परिपालय देवि विश्वम् श्रद्धा सतां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जातां त्वां नता स्म परिपालय देवी विश्वम् श्रद्धा सतां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जातां त्वां नतः स्म परिपालय देवी विश्वम्. All right, next line. किं वर्णयाम तव
किं वर्णयाम तव किं वर्णयाम तव
रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत्
रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत् रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत्
किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत्
किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत् किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत्
किं जातिवीर्यमसु
किं चातिवीर्यमसु किं चातिवीर्यमसु
रक्षयकारि भूरि
रक्षयकारि भूरि रक्षयकारि भूरि
किं जातिवीर्यमसु रक्षयकारि भूरि
किं चातिवीर्यमसु रक्षयकारि भूरि किं चातिवीर्यमसु रक्षयकारि भूरि.
Now the whole line. किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत् किं चातिवीर्यमसु रक्षयकारि भूरि
किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत् किं चातिवीर्यमसु रक्षयकारि भूरि किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत् किं चातिवीर्यमसु रक्षयकारि भूरि.
Now I'll chant it 4 times. किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत् किं चातिवीर्यमसु रक्षयकारि भूरि किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत् किं चातिवीर्यमसु रक्षयकारि भूरि किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत् किं चातिवीर्यमसु रक्षयकारि भूरि किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत् किं चातिवीर्यमसु रक्षयकारि भूरि. Next slide. किं चाहवेषु चरितानि
किं चाहवेषु चरितानि किं चाहवेषु तरितानि
तवाद्भुतानि
तवाद्भुतानि तवाद्भुतानि
किं चाहवेषु चरितानि तवाद्भुतानि
किं चाहवेषु चरितानि तवाद्भुतानि किं चाहवेषु चरितानि तवाद्भुतानि
सर्वेषु देव्यसुर
सर्वेषु देव्यसुर सर्वेषु देव्यसुर
देवगणादिकेषु
देवगणादिकेषु देवगणादिकेषु
सर्वेषु देव्यसुरदेवगणादिकेषु
सर्वेषु देव्यसुरदेवगणादिकेषु सर्वेषु देव्यसुरदेवगणादिकेषु.
Now the whole line. किं चाहवेषु चरितानि तवद्भुतानि सर्वेषु देव्यसुरदेव गणादिकेषु sorry, go ahead.
दाहवेषु चरितानि तवाद्भुतानि सर्वेषु देव्यसुरदेवगणादिकेषु दाहवेषु चरितानि तवाद्भुतानि सर्वेषु देव्यसुरदेवगणादिकेषु.
Now I'll chant it 4 times. किं चाहवेषु चरितानि तवद्भुतानि सर्वेषु देव्यसुर देवगणादिकेषु किं चाहवेषु चरितानि तवद्भुतानि सर्वेषु देव्यसुर देवगणादिकेषु किं चाहवेषु चरितानि तवद्भुतानि सर्वेषु देव्यसुर देवगणादिकेषु किं चाहवेषु चरितानि तवद्भुतानि सर्वेषु देव्यसुरदेवगणादिकेषु. Okay, so maybe instead of going on to the next shloka, I'll just go back and I will chant from the beginning what we've done so that you can hear it more as the flow of when it's being chanted. Okay, so I'll start with Om Rishirovacha. Om Rishirovacha Shakraadaya Suragana Nihateti Virye Tasmin Duratmani Suraribale Chadevya Tam Toshtovah Pranatinam Rashirodharam Savabhyah Praharsha Pulakot Kamacharudeha Devyaya Tatamidam Jagadatma Shaktya Nishesha Deva Gana Shakti Samoha Murtya Tamambikamakhila Deva Maharshi Pujyam Bhaktyanata Vidadhatu Shubhani Sanaha Yasyaf Prabhavamatulam Bhagavanananto Brahmaharascha Nahi Vaktumalambalam Cha Sa Chandika Khila Jagat Paripalanaya Nashaya Cha Shubhabhayasya Matim Karotu Ya Shri Swayam Sukritinam Bhavaneshwa Lakshmi Papatmanam Krutadhiyam Hridayeshu Buddhihi श्रद्धा सतां कुलजनप्रभवस्य लज्जातां त्वां नताः स्म परिपालय देवि विश्वम् किं वर्णयाम तव रूपमचिन्त्यमेतत् किं चातिवीर्यमसुरक्षयकारी भूरि किं चाहवेषु चरितानि तवाद्भुतानि सर्वेषु देव्यसुरदेव गणादिकेषु. Okay, so hopefully it's pretty clear. It does just take some practice. There's no getting around it. And you have to practice for the breathing aspect, being able to breathe deeply and smoothly. Also the melody, because for most of the melody, your note is actually not on the shruti at all. It's like either below or above the shruti. So this is the most common time to lose the shruti and get off that track. So it definitely takes a lot of practice. And then also just getting the flow of the entire line so that you can chant the entire thing smoothly from the beginning to the end of the line. So we went pretty slowly for this class because it's the beginning of something that is kind of new and different. Hopefully as we get into it, we can speed it up just a little bit, but I'd rather go a little bit slowly in this part to make sure that everyone feels comfortable, because otherwise once it speeds up, you'll completely lose it. If you don't feel comfortable at the slow pace, once it speeds up, it'll get completely lost. And I know that from personal experience. All right, so we'll stop there. So Sri Gurubhyo Namaha, and thank you for joining the class.